Yours.
Okay, it's mine, and like Dr. Gould said, it's going to be just a short Zoom, a brief run through of what we're going to do, and basically this this 801 is a culmination of your three other classes, the 800, which is systems thinking, the 625, which was theory U, and the 802, which was your tech course. I think he alluded to the fact already that this is not a research or writing papers course, because it's up against a course that you do have a lot of responsibility for writing papers. This is a play course, and you're going to use design and creative problem solving, the creative problem solving approach that you're going to find in the Puccio book as you do the readings from that. The first thing that you are going to do is a writing activity. Now that I said it's not a writing activity, but there is a writing activity, and it's basically a 1 to 2 pager. What is creativity? In your mind, in your words, in your life, what do you feel creativity is? That's the only thing you're going to do on your own. Everything else that is going to be worked on in this course is going to be done in teams. So we'll have teams of what, Dr. Gould, 5, 5, and 4?
Yeah, the question is, you guys want to stay in your teams, don't you, that you were doing in 802?
Absolutely.
Yes, I do.
Okay, all right, cool. Then what we'll do is, Dawn and I will set up the collaborate teams again, so you'll just stay in your 802 teams.
Perfect.
Right.
You won't interact with my class, the 911 class, because we're going to do Zooms jointly.
Right. So we'll have groups of 5, 5, and 4 once we break it down. The essential question, you're going to look at the pre-K to adult school setting that's in existence now, and how can we create a sustainable world with education as its focal point, I think might be a better way to say it, instead of let's look at pre-K to adult school. Let's look at the educational setting for people that are in that range. And the focal point, yes, is education, but we're going to look at it from a more creative aspect. We've got to.
Yeah, go through your slides.
I was going to just thought of that. I thought, slide 2. I was just going to tell you something about myself, and I realized I wanted to be on slide 2. You can see my name there, Dawn R. Sutton. I have over 20 years experience in teaching. I have taught regular ed. I got my first master's degree in special education, and I did it at a time in my life to be more marketable. I worked in the beginning at a private school because I was subbing in a public school, and I graduated and I wanted to teach. So I worked for a public school, and at the same time started my master's degree in special education to be marketable, which sounds cold-hearted and cruel, and truly didn't turn out to be the reason, because I found as I continued in my teaching life that I was totally suited and loved teaching special education and would not go back to regular education even if they paid me more. It was a challenge for me that was extremely, or is extremely rewarding. I am right now working with a public school they call an alternative education setting. It's where kids get kicked out of school for a number of reasons. They could be kicked out for absenteeism. They could be kicked out, the one kid, because he came to school with a hash pipe. Another kid, a couple of them, and I'm saying kids, but I have, at least 6 18-year-olds. One was in lockup for a period of time. Many of them have probation officers. Of that group, this alternative learning center allows them to continue their education, graduate from the public school from which they came, and I deal with those students that have an IEP. So they get classes from other teachers in subject area matter, and I assist by teaching the special ed kids. And the special ed kids are not, and I've taught many levels of special ed all the way down to severe and profoundly retarded, which is what they used to call it, at Whitehaven Institute. These kids at most have specific learning disabilities. More of them that are not identified could be considered oppositional defiant in the emotional support world, but many of them are not identified. So those are the students that I work with now. And designing things around education that is going to reach out to kids like this we're at critical mass. If we don't do it now, we lose them all, because they're kids, and when they're not in school, if they don't come to school, half of them are out getting high somewhere. And we definitely have to change what we're doing. And this course is going to give you the opportunity to delve into your own creativity, the creativity of the other members of your group, and come up with an idea or a way to approach education that is going to sustain the students of the 21st century.
So you'll be able to actually, your teams are going to have a choice: either take what you did for me in 802 and really begin to expand it into a broader sense, or redefine it totally different and go into a different direction. So I think that particularly, because a couple of those teams really did a deep dive into your models. So my suggestion would be, and this is why I told Dr. Sutton about this, is that maybe you do want to go off on a little different direction than what you did, previously in 802.
And will we be sharing with them the models that our last group came up with?
Yeah, well, they have theirs, but we will share with you some of the past cohorts and what they did with theirs. But I will say that what you guys developed in 802 is an excellent starting point for what you'll be doing in this course.
Okay, great. That's good. The main book that you're going to use in this course, the main text.
Slides.
Excuse me?
Move your slides along.
Move my slides. Why don't you move? You can move my slides. This is the essential question: the present structure of our schools, capable of preparing our children to understand the emerging global realities. No way. Right now, if we continue as is, I see from my end, you might not see from your end, but with kids that I work with, I see us losing more and more. And I go back to, 15 or more years ago, and I got switched to a different building because they were combining classes because their special ed numbers went down. That must have been once in history because they have quadrupled since then, especially in the area of emotional support. And we'll be using the Puccio book as the main book, Creativity and Leadership. How do you nurture creativity within an organization by using your own leadership abilities? You'll use what you've learned about Theory U, thinking about the source of your leadership and where it comes from. The personas in the Tom Kelly book, he is the person that was the head of the D School and IDEO, and leading design firms in the world look to him for creativity. For the 10 Faces of Innovation, who are you? This is something that you're going to ask of yourself and then share with your team members. It's really good to work in a team because we all have different strengths and weaknesses. And where someone will have a strength in an area, you may be weak in, you may be the strong one in another area that we address. So that's why working in teams is so great. You will be, Tim Brown is actually the head of IDEO, Change by Design, design thinking, using STEM and STEAM to teach kids. Then there is the Dan Pink book called Drive, where extrinsic rewards are most salient. Many people work only to that point, and that's the truth. Only to the point that triggers a reward and no further. This is all I'm doing, because if I do 1 ounce more, I know they're not going to pay me for it. I know I'm not going to get anything special, so I'm only going up to touch that bar, and there I stop. And Dan Pink takes a very interesting slant on that as well.
Yeah, just one other thing about the books. The one that is most like a textbook is really the Puccio book, the Creative Leadership one. So you'll be going through that one. But what's nice about it is that it really relates to many of the things that you went through through Theory U and also in 800. But it relates greatly to what the Kelly brothers talk about. But more importantly, that Dan Pink book is the most interesting one because of our fixation on the extrinsic, rewards. And it's interesting with Dr. Sutton talking about special education. And those of you who work with special education, that whole system is based upon, M&Ms and extrinsic rewards. And the question then is it the expense of really understanding how you get people to intrinsically understand the concept of innovation and creativity. And if you think back to 802, the second, machine age, that book really will help you to think about some of the concepts that they were talking about. So that's just the relationship of these 4 books and why they will be important for you to look through it. And as Dawn said, those 10 faces is kind of an interesting thing because the Kelly has so many years experience as a designer that now IDEO has moved into social designing of social institutions, etc. And these 10 faces are kind of interesting points of reference for yourself to look at. Are you like that? Or are you not like that? So right. I just wanted to take a little deeper into those 4 books.
And I also think with that book, especially the blend of the team members becomes important because some are strong in the area and some are not. And as Dr. Gould said, with special ed, it's almost, it's kind of an inside joke with me. We have positive behavior support plans that we're supposed to write up. There are plans to have positive behavior rewards? Are they going to get tickets? Are they going to add things up and they'll be able to get candy, which not in my class, but these are some of the things that go around for ideas. What can be their extrinsic reward for behaving appropriately or doing their work appropriately? And when hard pressed, if I had to save my life with what is my positive behavior support plan, I don't have one. I work with the kids to the point where what I get back from them is intrinsic from the student. They are intrinsically rewarded by getting the right answer. I can see it on their faces. I can hear it in their voices. And I am never dangling a piece of candy or, a movie ticket that adds up to time off task or something. But it is pushed heavily in the special education arena. You're going to have some assignments. You're seeing them here. The vision of yourself as the creative leader, that's the one I mentioned before. That is the 1 to 2 page written assignment that you'll do. It shows you the week that it's due and the value that you earn in points. Then there's a self-analysis in light of the innovation persona.
And you do that not as a paper, but as some creative format that will express what you perceive yourself as being in relationship to those personas and where you see maybe some of your weaknesses in those areas. So that's not a writing, that is
a presentation. That could be a Prezi, that could be a PowerPoint, that could be a
voice thread,
a story map, inspiration type story map. The first one is the only one that's the written assignment. After that comes the synthesis of the literature on creative leadership. And this seems to be coming into the forefront of education now more than ever. I think back, Dr. Gould, to, I guess Young Zhao would be the one, and he has said we're doing now what China did 10 years ago. And he gave the analogy of we're trying to make the perfect sausage factories where they make perfect sausages. And China did that already, and it didn't work well, and they threw it away. So they're on to something else. But we're now trying to do the perfect sausage factory, and all of a sudden pieces fall out and up pops a Steve Jobs and up pops somebody else with a creative bent on learning or creativity in the workplace. So the synthesis of the literature on creative leadership becomes very important.
Yeah, and where you'll get a lot of that, what we'd like you to look at is when you go into your buttons on the side there.
The left-hand side.
Besides the stuff that the Wall Street Journal and all that, we do have material there that draws upon some of the research that's coming out of, about creativity, some of the neurosciences, and things that you're discovering yourself. So really what we want you to be able to do there is to take a look at, what you're beginning to see as seminal works for you around the concept of creativity, and then express that. As I said, now you can do it as a written form, or you can do it as a video, voice thread, or whatever. But I just want you to be able to, both of us want you to be able to say, okay, here's what we're finding out, or what I'm finding out in relationship to the research that's out there, what's emerging. And particularly right now, like Dr. Sutton said, STEM and STEAM are the real big thing now, this whole movement. The buzzword design thinking is now becoming a buzzword in education. You're hearing it all over the place. So we do want you to at least investigate the literature out there to help your thinking related to this idea of creativity and innovation, and also might help you to begin to think about maybe an area of interest that you might want to pursue as you move towards your dissertation.
Right.
So that's that literature group. And then you'll be doing, obviously, in 815, a literature review, but I don't know if you can integrate it into that or draw upon that or whatever.
But Dr. Gould mentioned that's actually where I got my ideas for my dissertation, was when I was doing a synthesis of the literature that I had been gathering to do my dissertation. And before I took my comprehensive exams, the one area of the comprehensive exams for me was instructional technology, because I had my doctorate was in leadership and instructional technology. And I tried to find out what was the latest, greatest, newest thing that you could put out there to interest the students. I've always said, as a teacher, you're supposed to do anything, including stand on your head, to get the point across. And so what's out there now that's new and innovative that we can use with kids? And that's where I came up with I studied for my comprehensive exams to answer the question of what's new and great in technology, and my dissertation ended up being I'm forgetting the name of it now. All I could think of is the beer.
You did a phenomenological study.
Phenomenological, an IPA. All I could think of was the beer, an interpretive phenomenological analysis on the experiences of emotional and behavioral disorder students using virtual reality. Because as I went through the synthesis of my literature, as I prepared for the comprehensive exams, that's what I found to be one of the newest, latest, greatest kind of things that I could jump on for a dissertation. And so when he says the same thing goes for you, keep your mind wide open when you're doing all these projects, because one of them is going to lead you to your dissertation. We have the design thinking project that would be due on week 10. And another thing, if you have not seen it already, a suggestion is to go to YouTube and watch what's entitled "Humans Need Not Apply."
Well, they got that one.
Did they get that one already? Okay. For anybody that didn't get that in their class, that's definitely something that you should have in the back of your mind.
That was the 802 class from my other class, the one I have responsibility for. They had 802, and they didn't know what I was talking about. And I said, well, you got to talk to this group, and they'll fill you in on that.
Yeah. So if you thought we don't need to change schools, watching that YouTube video kind of will change your mind. Your design thinking project booklet that has been provided, which is uploaded in Blackboard, will help you see the interconnectedness of the courses that you've taken already, and also the interconnectedness of the books for this course. Most organizations work in convergent organizations. As Otto Scharmer would say, self to nature, self to others, self to self. You're going to get deeper into the assumptions about creativity and how to use creativity in leadership development.
Yeah, one of the things that's going to be important, and some of you have already said, oh, this looks like going to be a fun course. Well, the design of this course generally is to keep it in a divergent point of view, because the problem is most of us totally work on a daily level in a convergent point of view. So what you're going to learn, particularly from Tim Brown in design thinking, is understanding that relationship between divergent and convergent thinking. And the Puccio book particularly is great for that, because what he and his team does is really breaks down the leadership skills that are related to both of those around the different subjects they talk about. So when you look at that handbook that Dawn and I put together for you, basically what we're showing you is the conceptual framework for what this course is. So you're going to draw upon Theory U, you're going to draw upon systems thinking, and you're going to now superimpose the concept of design thinking on top of it.
Right. You're going to get deeper assumptions about creativity, how to use it in leadership development, how to create 21st century learning environments for our students. You'll begin to see the possibilities of how you can use the tools in your present work environment. Weeks 1 to 3, Dr. Gould mentioned the buttons where you'll find the Wall Street Journal, the Sachs material, and other online material to scan to find out what challenge you're going to go after in this course.
Yeah, one of the things, though, is we have the slide up here, is this is what I really, both of us want you to think about. We mentioned the divergent, convergent, but this is to get you, remember how Otto Scharmer talked about getting to one source? Well, this one is going to look at that source as it relates to this idea of creativity and what that means to you as an individual. And then, as Dawn said, what's the skill sets that are there, and those skill sets will come out in the design thinking, in the Puccio stuff, and also in Dan Pink's, approach. So that's your task, guys, right here.
Right there. For the next 10 weeks, you're going to be working collaboratively. Get voices from the field. Say, I'm thinking about approaching the educational atmosphere this way. I think I'm going to bring this into a school setting, and get feedback from people. See if they think you're crazy or they're not crazy. If they think you're crazy, you're probably on the right track. But ask them what their opinion is of what you're doing. And don't forget, while you're doing this, don't forget those voices, the voice of judgment, the voice of cynicism, and the voice of fear.
So that first 3 weeks, basically what your team's doing, and if you did, obviously, you've probably all downloaded that handbook, and we've broken out some of the things you're going to do. So this week, you should be exploring the Wall Street Journal stuff, the Sachs material, all of those things over, in your teams. Look at those things to begin to do, a broader environmental scan, but also do it in the context of those 3 divides that Scharmer talked about. If you remember, the divide of self with nature, self with others, and then self with self, as you begin to not think about what education needs to be, but what's the world and the reality of what people are living in, because that's going to be the driving force. And then what will happen in that 3rd week is we want you to then begin to talk to other people outside of your teams in your work environment about some of these ideas to get feedback from them.
Right.
So does that make sense? Let's stop and just...
For that first section, weeks 1 to 3, does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so you're going to start focusing it in, and then you're going to get some opinions from others. And in week 4, as it says there, you're going to analyze the data from the field. What are you learning from the field? You're going to brainstorm with your teammates.
So here you're going to start going up the U.
Right.
So
what opportunities did we drag along as we started going up the U? What opportunities for dealing with our challenge? So now we're headed on the upswing. brainstorm expansively without constraints. Then in week 5 and 6, you're going to start doing the prototyping of different designs. Gather feedback from each other and gather feedback from outside.
So what you're going to do is almost the same thing you did as you were developing your 802 process. But what will happen is over a 2-night period of week 6, you're going to present in 10 minutes your prototype of what you're designing. Then you're going to get feedback for about 15 minutes from everyone. And then what's going to be interesting is you're going to be interacting with my class, looking at their teams, and you're going to give them feedback. They're going to give you feedback.
Right.
So we kind of create this culture that the feedback then becomes extremely important for your team to move forward. And you'll get a lot of feedback from us as you're moving towards this in terms of this process. But feedback is very, very critical when you're doing prototyping.
And again, the prototyping will be done, and as was mentioned at the bottom, don't forget the APA, blah, blah, blah. I like that.
That is, yeah, that's all the Otto Scharmer, what he talked about, what you got to watch out for when you're going up to U.
Yeah. And then in week 7 and 8, you're going to create physical space, the flow, the systems of work, the leadership skills. Everything's going to come together in your designing process in weeks 7 and 8.
And that's why I said to you, because you guys, in one aspect did a lot of this with your, actually limited model that you did in 802, even though some of you kind of really expanded outwards, particularly in the field of nursing, because those ones really stuck out. But what I want you to think about with your team, do you want to use that same approach you used in 802, or do you want to use it as a jump-off point to a much broader concept, or does your team want to move into a totally different direction? But that decision should be made after you look at all that stuff that's there for you to look at. The Wall Street Journal stuff and the Jeffrey Sachs stuff and, the videos that we're pounding you with.
You may want to go deeper in what you were doing already, or like Dr. Gould said, you may want to jump off to a completely different topic. And then in weeks 9 and 10, that's the presentation of the designs for schools.
That's showtime.
It's showtime. Yeah.
And then some of these might end up on the Presencing Institute website. Actually, a couple of yours from 802, I think I'm going to upload to that also. But this, and what will happen is we'll share with you some of the things that other groups over the years have done. So it'll help you to understand their presentations. Now, the difference here is that some of these were blended models. So what would happen is when I would teach a blended course, we would actually do design workshops where I'd bring toys and all types of stuff there, and they would create things with that. Whereas what we're doing here in a virtual environment, obviously we become a little bit more limited until we get into virtual reality down the road. So again, I want you to, we will show you both blended presentations and also some that were done totally virtually. But you guys really, in 802, did some phenomenal stuff. So, I think you're well on your way, to being able to perform these tasks.
So that's basically the overview of what the course is going to be. It is going to be the fun course. It's going to be less heavy with the reading and writing, although not devoid of it. But you've got to put your creative hats on and come up with something that's going to stop kids from getting kicked out of school and sent to my class. If only someone could come up with something that could make that happen. How wonderful that would be.
So there you go, guys. Any comments, questions, or anything? Pretty straightforward for you? See, Dawn, this group's always like this. I mean, it's like the Ferris Bueller movie.
They won't talk?
Yeah, it's like the Ferris Bueller movie.
Anybody?
Or they're very bright and they know what they're doing, so
Okay.
they really need. Hey, there he is. Oh, Dewey, I see you there. And you know what's so cool about this is you're in a bright room this time.
I don't see him.
Well, if you scroll down
How you doing
there.
Where is he?
Is that Apple IIe I hear?
Yeah, that's Apple IIe, man.
Yes. I'm in a bright room. I'm on my Mac computer.
Okay.
Explorer.
So you guys all set up? So you're pretty well set what we're going to do?
Yes, absolutely. I like
Okay.
and I look forward to working with you and learning from you, Dr. Sutton.
And I look forward to working with all of you. And I'm excited to see the projects and the ideas that you have, how we can deal with the kids the 21st century. Because looking at it from the dark side, I know we need some light.
All right, so you guys can, yeah, go ahead.
I was just responding saying.
Oh, okay. So otherwise, that's it. So you guys can say goodnight and onward, McDuff.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stacy.
Just to be clear, our first paper's due tomorrow, right?
Yep,
Okay, so that's the correct date.
that's correct.
Dudley, you got shit.
This is not a dissertation. It's just a quick thought.
It's just a 1 to 2 pager. I mean, if you say 1 page, half of you are going to do 1.5 pages anyway. So just get thinking on your own creativity, how you are creative.